Welcome to The Pillars, the podcast of the 363rd ISR Wing of the United States Air Force. I'm Chaplain Jim Bridgham.
And I'm Dr. Jerry Walker.
On each episode of The Pillars, we find a brief resilience topic so you can practically fix any potential roadblocks you encounter and finish a better wingman, airman, and leader. So let's dive in. What's today's topic?
Well, today's topic is critical wingmanship. And it's not just your average wingmanship. We're talking about not just what it means to be a good wingman, but how to be a good wingman in those critical moments, those life-defining, those life-changing moments. And to help us talk about this, we've actually got Master Sergeant Booker back from the 1st IS down at Shaw. Welcome, Sergeant Booker. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me back. It's good to be back and back in the seat again. I'm ready to roll. Let's rock.
Well, we had such a good time the first time, and we figured you've got to have some great stories. And what we're looking at here is what happens when something happens and we need to take action, some kind of event, a critical event, a stressful event, whatever you want to say. And we all experience these. So we wanted to see if you had any examples.
Oh, of course. I like I said, I have a Rolodex of example stories, but I'll talk about one that was very close and dear to me. My first base, Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska, great base. I would love to go back there at any time. But
shout out to the 20th IS.
So we were in the dorms, and at that time I was security forces, and I stayed in the security forces dorms, and we were right across from the club. So there was always noise and things of that nature. Guys coming in from mid shift, day shift, and swing shift. So one night, the fire alarm always goes off in the building because the building was kind of old. And when the guys were cooking, they were always setting it off the fire alarm with the microwave burning something or that nature. So over a period of time, everybody, stopped getting up when the fire alarm went off, and we ignored it.
Just became accustomed to it.
Yes, and it was just a norm. The fire alarm would go off, and you just lay in bed and say, okay, well, 15, 20 minutes, it will go off. And, okay, nothing's happening. So a few weeks later, same thing's going on. Continuous. And one night it was storming real bad, raining, and it was just like the perfect setup for a disaster. A nice stormy lightning, thunder, just boom, and the fire alarm goes off. And I can hear some guys from like mid shift. They had just got off, and they were playing around in the hallways. Naturally, I was on day shift, so I poked my head out. Hey, would you guys quit screwing around? I'm trying to get some sleep. Typical security forces dorm or CE dorm, maintainer dorm, just a wild party. So I'm laying in the bed. Next thing you know, the fire alarm goes off, and it's going off for probably about 20, 30 minutes. And I'm like, man, these guys are up screwing around again. I'm tired of it. So I laid in the bed for another 20 minutes, and the alarm is still going off. I said, okay, Andre, get up. So I get up, and I'm mad. Because I have to get up in less than an hour. I have to be at guard mount at 4:30 in the morning. So I get up, open the door, look down the hall, and lo and behold, what do I see? Fire, smoke. And I stayed on the first floor, so I'm like, oh, crap. There really is a fire. And the fire alarm's been going off for about an hour now. So I jump up, run back into my room. I hate to tell you guys, but I was in my boxers. So I throw on some shorts, throw on a shirt, knock on my suite mate's door like, hey, dude, there's a fire. He's totally knocked out and in a coma. And so I just run out my room, and just start banging on doors. So I was the closest to the emergency exit. So I run outside and I run to the front of the building. Now, granted, it's raining cats and dogs. And I'm out in the front of the building. By that time, the fire department, I can hear them coming. I can hear security forces responding. And I look up and I see guys, banging on their window on the 3rd floor, looking helpless and hopeless. It was like it was out of a movie. And they're banging. So one guy took a chair, busted his window out, and he just flat out just jumped out. And so It was like a team effort with going back in the dorm and banging on doors and trying to get these guys out. And the smoke was very thick and intense. And, the whole dorm was a security forces dorm. So naturally, all these airmen, we just reacted to, what we were trained to do, go in and help people until, the fire department got there. And there was a few guys that wasn't paying attention to the signs. You don't run to the fire, you run away from the fire. And a few guys got burnt trying to get out of the dorm, but nobody passed away, nobody died. But, just the amount of wingmanship and the guys, teaming up together to save, everybody in the dorm. So nobody was hurt. Everything was lost in the dorm. The next day, they transported us to the base gym, and we sat in the base gym in wet clothes and just waiting on finance to get there, trying to figure out what to do next. But when I say the whole dorm was a total loss, we lost all our belongings. The only thing that I had left was a fireproof safe that my mom and dad told me, purchase this and keep all your protected documents in here, all your important papers in here. So that's the only thing that I had left. So, after we got some dry clothes and everything, and wing commander, command chief, and all those folks showed up, our squadron commander, chief, finance was there, and first thing they were, we got to get you guys some type of assistance, to replace your belongings. So initially off the top, we're going to give everybody in the dorm $3,000 until you can file your voucher based off your itemized list.
Wow.
And just the amount of support, the clothes that were donated to us, the uniforms, just personal belongings, like the simplicities of life, toothbrush, toothpaste, things of that. But going from having the luxuries of the world to not having anything, I mean, it was a very trying time and very scary time, because being a 19-year-old airman, you don't know what to do. So, I mean, that's something that just sticks with me, So the moral of my story is, pay attention to the signs. Like anytime there's a fire alarm or lightning within 5 or tornado warning or anything that could cause mass chaos or could hurt people, I always pay attention and I follow the directions and the rules, i.e. flash flood zones, don't go through this area, slow down crossing bridges, it might be ice on the bridge. I really pay special attention to those things, because somebody's giving us a warning sign that, hey, it's a possibility that something is going to happen or something has happened or is happening.
That's a great story, and I love the moral of it, to pay attention to the signs. Now, not all cases there will be signs, but a lot of times there are, but they're unfortunately subtle. A lot of people don't come straight out and say, hey, I'm struggling, hey, I need help. They're more subtle about it, or it's couched behind a message that's phrased differently. You're like, oh, well, just having some troubles at home, or I'm just not feeling good today, or I haven't been sleeping a lot lately, those types of things. But what I think is interesting about your story, too, is that you're talking about how you guys had grown so accustomed to the fire alarms that you just started to ignore them.
Yes.
It was just like, oh, well, it's the same old. And I can see that happening when, we've got folks in our, some of our units or in our, small shops where they're always complaining about something, or it's like they have always got something going on. At some point, we can just tune them out and be like, oh, well, that's just, Sergeant Airman so-and-so. They're always complaining, or they're always got something going on. But that's going to make us ignore those types of messages. And when something is really going on, significant with that person, maybe people don't take action to help them. And that's where I think we get a lot of people, dropping off or having to take a knee. It's because they're trying to give out these warning signs, but it's just like the boy who cried wolf. People have grown so accustomed to them, they just start to ignore them.
Yes.
And it's either accustomed or you rationalize it. An example recently that happened to me is I was running and I broke my ankle, pulling all the ligaments in my foot as well. Well, why is this relevant to our discussion? Well, I'm 2.5 miles into a trail run. I'm a distance runner, no big deal. Well, it hurt. It hurt pretty bad. And a gentleman walks up on the trail and says, well, I'm a doctor. Let me look at it. He hit it once on the bottom and said, does that hurt? I said, no. Well, it's probably not broken. You're good. So I walk out the 2.5 miles.
Because that's the only thing that could have been wrong with it, right?
and I said, well, a doctor told me. And so it's hurting. I'm getting those warning signs you talked about. It's hurting like a champ. But I'm thinking it's a sprain. I'll run it off. this is a bad idea with a broken ankle, just for those listening. So I try to get back, and I come back. It's a Sunday. I have to preach 2 worship services. So I preach in the Bethel Chapel, then the Langley Chapel.
Standing up the whole time.
Standing up the whole time.
Oh, wow.
So then it's now 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm like, man, this is really hurting for a sprain. Like, this is really odd. So I've got it iced, and it's just the size of a football. I mean, this thing is ridiculous. And we go to the ER, and finally the wonderful people at the Langley Hospital say, oh, you broke it? Really? Well, you exceeded expectations. But the thing is, what did I do? Well, I had warning signs. I had swelling and pain. But what was I doing? I listened to some person I don't know who had inaccurate information walking along the trail that just went on. I don't know what type of doctor he was. I mean, it could have been a chiropractor, probably not a podiatrist, right? So whatever this person was, they tapped it, and I didn't have all the info. Here in this room, we have a first sergeant, we have a clinical psychologist, we have a chaplain. We have some data to help you. You got to make sure who you're listening to determine what those warning signs are. In my case, I needed an x-ray that would say, this is what the damage you've done. For us, it's sometimes you need a professional, but what we want to talk about here is oftentimes you don't. Sometimes you can solve many problems on your own. From a spiritual perspective, before we get to the psychological principles, a lot of this comes from mindfulness. Now, what mindfulness is, although it originates in the East, is just being really present in the moment. I get excited. I like coffee. I can get excitable. But the thing is, I have to focus and be here now on this podcast or with the airman I'm with. If a person comes to you and they're that complainer we just talked about, try to just really listen to them. Just give full attention. How's that done practically? Well, focus as much as you can on the message and ignore any other stray thoughts coming in. Just give them your full attention. And I'll oftentimes take a deep breath and listen and try to repeat back actively what they're saying, but just keep listening to them and listen to the message behind it. The other thing I'll do is oftentimes in my head think, this person, I wish them the best. I wish them the best. So as I'm listening to them, even if it's making me uncomfortable with the negativity or something, I'm saying, I want them to have a full life. I wish them the best. And that works really well. Now, what kind of other tactics can we do from either your perspective or Shirt's perspective?
Sure. Well, from a psychological perspective, something I've heard come with both of you guys, Sergeant Booker and Chaplain Bridgham, is this idea of personal responsibility. And I think it's really critical as a bystander to know when it's your personal responsibility to intervene. And unfortunately, a lot of times we'll push this off, even if we have awareness of a problem, because of something called the diffusion of responsibility. Anybody's taken a Psych 101 course, you may remember the story of Kitty Genovese in New York. Basically, it's a situation where this woman, Kitty, was walking home from her job as a bartender late one night and cutting through a back alley, and she was mugged and stabbed and beaten and left for dead. And unfortunately, a large number of people actually witnessed this happening, but because of the way the buildings were oriented, they could all see each other. So they were watching Kitty be attacked. They saw that there are multiple other people who also were witnessing this as well. And every single one of those people, when interviewed later, said, oh, well, I just assumed somebody else had called the police. And Kitty sat there for hours and bled to death, eventually died. And this has been a landmark case for psychologists. Parts of it have been later debunked, but speaks to the diffusion of responsibility. That responsibility that might have fallen on a singular individual who saw that and knew that they were the only person who could intervene had actually been diffused across many other people to where no one person actually pulled the trigger, please excuse the euphemism, to actually help that person. And this is a dangerous trap that we can fall in our units. You know, if we think, well, yeah, I know this person's got some issues, but everybody's aware of it. You know, I don't necessarily have to intervene. You're wrong, because I guarantee a lot of other people are probably thinking the same thing along those lines, and that person's still not getting the assistance that they need. So take that responsibility, own that responsibility to your airmen to reach out and to try to make a difference. And it all takes it's as simple as demonstrating genuine care and concern, giving them a sense of hope that things may suck now, but they're not going to suck forever, that there's a way to help things get better, and try to reinvigorate the passion that they have for life, for their connection with you and with other people, with friends and family, for things that they enjoy doing. Get them out of that funk, because when we're struggling and we're having a hard time, those strong emotions compromise our judgment, and they make us think the wrong way about things. And so all it takes is restoring or reinvigorating that person, getting them to focus on those positive things, those shared relationships, the things that they enjoy, the people they love to be around, to help break them out of that mindset. But it takes somebody to actually have the courage and the willingness to intervene.
So, Sergeant Booker, let's say you're walking around your unit and an airman comes to you and they say, look, I know that there's an event in my life that I need to respond to, but I don't know how. It could be major like the fire, or minor, someone, that negativity that's persistent and it's been diffused. Do you think someone else is dealing with it? What tips, tactics would you recommend to an airman to deal with issues like this?
Well, the first thing is where your focus goes, your energy flows. So we need to tackle that particular task, because guess what? That's the number one thing that's going on in your life. So right then and there, you have my undivided attention, and I want you to have that issue to have your undivided attention. And collectively, as a team, we're going back to my office and we're going to sit down and talk about this. Guess what? Granted, I might be trying to eat lunch, leave early for the day, but guess what? You have my undivided attention until we come up with some type of plan to fix this. And a lot of times, the individual talks it out themselves. I'm just sitting there listening, and I'm just looking at them, and I can hear the emails popping in, my phone's ringing, and my stomach's growling. But guess what? I can care less. I'm going to let you talk the situation out, and most of the time, the individual fixes the issue themselves, and I'm just, okay. And after they're done, I'm like, okay, well, I just regurgitate what they already told me, and I'm like, okay, so you said you're going to go over to finance and, see what the issue is with your pay because you're missing 2 to 3 months of pay. And guess what? I'll say, okay, if you need additional help, come see me, and I'll go over to finance also. Or we can go over there together tomorrow because I have some paperwork I need to drop off. So guess what? We can make a field trip out of it. And then it's a short little walk to finance. So that's another opportunity for us to continue to talk and learn each other, and, me to pick up on their nonverbals and just where their psyche is and try to figure out, okay, are there additional things? Okay, if you're having financial issues, what are you doing, with your money off duty? Do you have a plan in place, or are you struggling at home? And just being sometimes outside of the work environment helps, to get, more information. And a lot of times it's just a misunderstanding or a mismanagement, that one isolated incident. And I'll say, hey, there's the AFRC right over there across the street. You know what? We should walk over there after we leave finance, after we figure out the pay thing.
And I love this because you don't send them over there. Just be like, hey, why don't you go check this out? Bye, see you later. You're like, hey, well, let's go over there together. I'm sharing in this responsibility with you.
Totally voluntary. And I said, well, hey, let's stop over there. And sometimes I'm lying to them because I really want them to go in there and talk to the financial counselor. But I'll go over there and say, hey, I need to stop over here and see IA Miss Williams or Mr. Jones. And we'll go in there and I'll say, hey, Mr. Williams and Mr. Jones, how you doing? Hey, this is Airman such and such. And, just introducing people that are around me, it's kind of, because it's rude not to introduce somebody that's with you. And I'll say, yeah, where are you coming from? Oh, we just coming from finance. We're just trying to take care of some budget stuff. And then I'll throw the sales pitch. She's a very good, budgeter and things of that nature. I sat down with her before. Maybe you can sit down with her and talk to her about budgeting, because she has me on a retirement plan that, when I retire in 2 years, I don't ever have to work again. You might want to talk to her about this, especially with the new blended retirement system and things of that nature, and, all the opportunity to take the redux and, a lump sum of pay. And, most of the time I say, well, we got time. Go ahead, sit down with her. And, I'll kind of give him or her, whichever financial counselor is there, a little head nod or a wink to cue them off, like, hey, I need you on this one. And like I said, they stop what they're doing, and guess what the priority is? The focus is on that particular airman or NCO, or CGO or FGO. I've had those all of those scenarios with, military members. At the end of the day, we're all airmen, so it's a point of getting everybody the resources they need to help them with their issue.
And I think that's a key thing, is you're listening to them, and then you're helping them ultimately access someone who can help that specific problem. And I think it's great because we don't have to be a financial counselors for every person, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we can help them listen to their problems and then move them on. That listening piece is so key too. What you said at the beginning as far as they solve their own problems, I call it the lamppost theory. Sometimes people come in and I function as a lamppost or a light post. I do nothing but stand there and just, I have a light on, I guess. But that's not spiritual.
You help them shine
the
the
light.
Yeah.
not to get overly spiritual there or claim too much. But the bottom line is that what does a lamppost do? It just functions in one thing. It doesn't respond, but they talk, they find their own solutions and go. And that really minimizes what we do sometimes, but it's true. Sometimes someone just needs to vent.
Yeah, sometimes that's all people need. I love what you're emphasizing, Sergeant Booker, about truly listening to somebody and being there in the moment, not letting anything else distract you. As it reminds me of a high-ranking officer who I met a couple years ago while I was deployed, who was going around and speaking to different units about his experiences and similar circumstances, what we've been talking about. Basically, when he was a young LT, he was really struggling. He was depressed. But he didn't feel comfortable talking to anybody because he was a flyer, didn't want to get niffed. And finally, one day, his squadron commander actually, approached him and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he just broke down. So the squadron commander brought him into his office. He said, he unplugged his phone from the wall, turned off his phone, shut down his computer and everything, and said, "You've got my undivided attention. However long you want to talk, let's do this." He said, several hours later, a bunch of tears. He got the help that he needed, and he's a much stronger person today because of it. But that's all it took, and that was just a few moments of a few hours of time out of that commander's day. But it's had such a huge benefit on this officer's life. I mean, he is one of the most resilient people I've ever met. He, talks to airmen all over the Air Force now about his experiences and how to grow as a person, and how admitting weakness is actually a strength. And it's just amazing to me how much impact we can have on our fellow airmen just by listening and just by being that person that they can go to.
It's such a small thing, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you think about it, just giving undivided attention. Do you have anything to add, sir?
Well, with that, no way possible are we all the subject matter experts on everything. It's just a matter of, like me, I pride myself on getting out, talking to people, and learning, okay, you work where? You're the chaplain assistant over here. Okay, you're medical, you're finance. And guess what? I reach back and I ask those people for help when these issues arise. So as soon as that airman or that NCO or whoever's in my office is telling me what their issue is, and they're telling me the story, and like you said, I'm being the light pole, I'm sitting there going through my Rolodex in my head and saying, okay, I need to call Sergeant Johnson because you know what, he's over at finance. I need to call Sergeant England. She's over at dental, and I know at least I can get them in the right vicinity. If you can get them in the right vicinity, it's a matter of just, hey, asking the question, like, who do we talk to for, garnishment of wages? There's a particular section in finance to understand, who to talk to, the subject matter expert. And after I hand them over to that subject matter expert, I'm like, okay, you guys have it, but guess what? I'm going to follow up to make sure that customer, received the services that they needed or their questions were answered. And then I'm going to come back later on and I'm going to ask you some questions to that subject matter expert because I want to get smart on it. So the next time that situation arises, I'm like, okay, I have this in my toolkit. Guess what? I'm pulling it out because I already know the answer.
And honestly, that's such a great thing to close with, I think, because here's the issue, and we'll have a wrap piece in a minute, but if you don't know how to solve a problem and you want advice, so let's say you're an NCO, you're a senior airman, you have an airman first class that you don't know how to solve a problem, come to one of our offices in a hypothetical situation, say, how would you respond, especially if it's minor? We're not talking the big issues. We're saying this person has a girlfriend problem, boyfriend problem, whatever it is, and you'd like to know how to help. We can give you some advice on how to respond. We will mentor you, and honestly, it's nice because we're creating people who can go out and do some more work on almost on our behalf and to triage.
Yeah.
So,
And I have NCOs come to me all the time with those types of hypothetical questions. I had one just earlier this week where it was, hey, my airman's going through this, and this. What can I do, or what should I do? Or hey, not me, but hypothetically, if an airman had this type of situation, how would you advise them? That's great. I love it. So feel free to reach out to us, because we may not be the person to intervene in that situation, but maybe we can help guide you. Well, to wrap up today, I think we got a lot of great points, but if we had to condense it into just a few things, I'd say the big takeaways are: know the warning signs, all right? Be looking out for them. Take personal responsibility, that responsibility to act, and know where to take your folks. If you're not the right person for the job, or if they're maxing out your capabilities, know where else you can go to get them that help you need. And that's how you really be a good critical wingman, really help out our folks.
Well, we want to thank everyone for listening today. Thanks, Sergeant Booker, for coming up again. This is awesome.
Thanks for having me back.
So we just want to say thank you for everything you do. Honestly, you have very difficult jobs. You have a lot of things coming at you. You have to manage a lot of change, a lot of issues just day to day, and manage a full-time career. So we just wanted to thank you for that, and we want to let you know we're always here for you. You can reach out to us. You can reach out to your shirt. And if you have any questions, you can reach to us on the global address list, email us, Facebook us, whatever you need to do. But with that, we hope you review our podcast, and we'll see you later. Bye.